Purport by Srila Prabhupada. From this verse, it appears that a woman is also supposed to have been a man in his or her previous life. And due to his attachment to his wife, he now has the body of a woman. Bhagavad Gita confirms this. A man gets his next life's birth according to what he thinks of at the time of death. If someone is too attached to his wife, naturally he thinks of his wife at the time of death. And in his next life, he takes the body of a woman. Similarly, if a woman thinks of her husband at the time of death, then naturally she gets the body of a man in the next life. In the Hindu scriptures, therefore, woman's chastity and devotion to man is greatly emphasized. A woman's attachment to her husband may elevate her to the body of a man in her next life, but a man's attachment to a woman will degrade him, and in his next life he will get the body of a woman. We should always remember, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, that both the gross and subtle material bodies are dresses. They are the shirt and coat of the living entity. To be either a woman or a man only involves one's bodily dress. The soul in nature is actually the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Every living entity being classified as energy is supposed to be originally a woman or one who is enjoyed. In the body of a man, there is a greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. There is less opportunity in the body of a woman. In this verse, it is indicated that the body of a man should not be misused through forming an attachment to woman and thus becoming too entangled in material enjoyment, which will result in getting the body of a woman in the next life. A woman is generally fond of household property, ornaments, furniture, and dresses. She is satisfied when the husband supplies all these things sufficiently. The relationship between man and woman is very complicated, but the substance is that one who aspires to ascend to the transcendental stage of spiritual realization should be very careful when accepting the association of a woman. In the stage of Krishna consciousness, however, such restriction of association may be slackened, because if a man's and woman's attachment is not to each other but to Krishna, then both of them are equally eligible to get out of the material entanglement and reach the abode of Krishna. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, anyone who seriously takes to Krishna consciousness, whether in the lowest species of life, or a woman, or of the less intelligent classes such as the mercantile and laborer class, will go back home, back to Godhead, and reach the abode of Krishna. A man should not be attached to a woman, nor should a woman be attached to a man. Both man and woman should be attached to the service of the Lord. Then there is the possibility of liberation from material entanglement for both of them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Purana. Om Ajnana-Timirandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Lord Kapila is explaining how there is the attachment to Maya, illusion, even if one has the form of a woman. In the human form of life, both man and woman may become attached to illusion. It is not just the man alone for whom woman is Maya. The form of the woman is Maya. For a woman, the form of a man is Maya. In other words, for any human being in any form, man or woman, the special prerogative of human life is that a human being need not get attached to Maya. Instead, as Prabhupada says in the purport, a man should not be attached to a woman and a woman should not be attached to a man. Both man and woman should be attached to the service of the Lord. This is a special thing about bhakti. In bhakti, there is no discrimination made between man and woman. All other yoga processes, they make this distinction between man and woman. For example, Hatha Yoga cannot be practiced by women. Or even Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, which is cultivation of spiritual knowledge to discriminate between matter and spirit. It's very, very difficult even for a man. And as far as Karma Yoga is concerned, sacrificing the results of one's work, that also is only for a man. Whereas devotional service is for everyone. Not only that, the other yoga systems are specially meant for a man, but even if one has a man's body, one has to gradually rise from the lower levels to the higher level. Like a Shudra, somebody who is mind-body system is on the level of Shudra, even if one has a man's body. Still, such a person is not eligible to practice Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Hatha Yoga. Not possible. Spiritual life is for somebody who has come to the level of a Brahmana. If one is not on the level of a Brahmana, one has to elevate oneself to the level of a Brahmana and then accept spiritual life. This is the general method. But bhakti is different. The process of bhakti is different. Lord Krishna particularly points this out in the 9th chapter. Mami partha vyapashritya yepi syu papayonaya striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepi yanti parandare. Even if one is born in a very, very, very sinful background, still, if one takes shelter of Krishna, then one can approach the supreme destination, that is the abode of Krishna, by practicing Bhakti Yoga. So, Bhakti Yoga is available for everyone. The Srimad Bhagavatam says Bhakti Yoga is available even for birds and beasts. So for everyone, Bhakti Yoga is for all living entities. But A human being, by virtue of human birth, has got the developed intelligence to be able to understand that there is a higher purpose of this human form of life than simply engaging in satisfying the demands of the senses. This is the prerogative of the human form of life. And in the human form of life, if one is fortunate to come in contact with a pure devotee of Krishna, then one is guaranteed to actually take up spiritual life, especially Bhakti Yoga, and perfect oneself in just one life. But even if one is not able to contact a pure devotee, the human form of life itself is a special facility to inquire into spiritual subject matter, Brahma Jignasa. This is possible for every human being. Every human being. Provided they are not carried away by the illusory energy alluring one to indulge in sense gratification. It doesn't matter what background or what environment or what surroundings one is situated in. This material world is a ocean of sense objects. Vishaya Sagara. So anywhere, any person, any situation can engage in sense gratification. Bhagavatam says, people in hellish conditions also, they are able to enjoy sense gratification. That's the nature of sense enjoyment. It's simply relative, that's all. Those who are in heavenly planets, they think people in hell are suffering. But people in hell, no doubt they have suffering, but when they get some relief from suffering, they think, so nice. Just like we have experience even in this earthly planet. When we go through some difficulty or trouble or misery or suffering, we just want to get rid of this suffering somehow. But after the suffering is gone, we completely forget all about it. Then we become very busy with enjoyment. And if enjoyment is available according to our desire, then we are completely absorbed in such enjoyment that we forget the reality of material existence. Till another misery or calamity strikes us, we don't ever think, what is this material existence all about? And the greatest illusion is that while absorbed in sense gratification or material enjoyment, one completely forgets about impending death. Death can come any moment. And whoever the person, whatever the position, death is certain. Even up to Brahma, the topmost living being in this entire creation, even Brahma has to actually die one day. this material world, if somebody thinks that it is a very nice place for enjoyment, material enjoyment, then that certainly trapped in illusion. So different types of illusion are there, but some types of illusion are more entangling than other types of illusion. So here it is mentioned, how does somebody get a woman's body? Because in the previous life, a man who was attached to his wife, unfortunately at the time of death, the man was thinking of his wife. And according to the law of nature, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam yajati ante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavati. The form one gets, bhava. Bhava also means form. Bhava also means the mentality. So the form one gets depends on what was the thought process, what was the attachment, what was the state of mind at the time of death, the previous life. So at the time of death, if one thinks, one is very attached to a woman and thinks of the woman, then one gets a woman's body in the next life. And then what is the disadvantage? Here it said, for a man to think of a woman at the time of death and get a woman's body in the next life is a degradation. Why? Because in a woman's body, by influence of material nature, a woman looks upon a man as the one who provides wealth, progeny, house and other material assets. So that becomes the preoccupation in a woman's body. So the possibility of utilizing this human form of life for self-realization is very much lost if one looks upon opportunities for securing one's material life. Whereas for a woman to be attached to a man is not such a bad thing. That's why the scriptures encourage and also advise a woman should be chaste and devoted to her husband. But the purpose of such chastity and being devoted is not that a woman should aspire to get a man's body or a man's form in the next life. No. The idea is to develop or awaken the original devotion to Krishna. That is there dormant in every living entity's mind. So, the desire for material enjoyment is very misleading. That is the essential understanding we should have from all these descriptions. Anybody, man, woman, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, anybody, civilized, uncivilized, if they have any desire for material enjoyment in any way, subtle or gross, in heavenly planets, in a pious way, even then, this desire for material enjoyment is the root cause of material existence, leads to material bondage, entangles one in this material world. And it's not very easy to give up this desire for material enjoyment. We have experienced, even after taking up spiritual life, within spiritual life itself, we have so many petty attachments. We don't realize that spiritual life means detachment from everything material. That's why Sarvabhaumacharya, he has composed some nice prayers to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartham Ekam Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripambulistamaham Prapadye. The Supreme Lord has come in the form of Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, in order to teach us Vairagya Vidya, detachment from everything material. Even in devotional life, somebody becomes attached to some minimum possessions one has. Even that is dangerous. Any form of material attachment is dangerous. No attachment is safe, material attachment. Just like the example is given, so many examples are given. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is described. Sanatana Goswami, he was minister, leading a very, very aristocratic life. But after meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he decided to quit that materialistic way of life, aristocratic way of life. And he somehow escaped and came to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when he arrived, he had given up all his possessions, but he was having one very nice blanket. And because it was a cold season, so he was keeping that blanket, he was covering himself to protect himself against the cold. So after he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made arrangements for his stay, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to instruct him in Krishna consciousness. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw he doesn't have any possessions other than this one blanket. So one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indicated that you've given up everything practically. But why this attachment to this one blanket? So Sanatana Goswami understood, and he went to the bathing ghat, and there one poor man, he was having one old quilt which he was using to cover himself in the cold. So he went to that person and said, "Can you please exchange your quilt for my blanket?" That person began to laugh. "As it is, I am poor. Why are you cutting a joke on me?" Nobody will do that. No, they will not go and generally give a nice blanket and say, "Give me your quilt." Nobody will do that. So that poor man thought, he is just, teasing me. So Sanatana Goswami very seriously told him, no. I really want to give you this and I want that. So when he heard that, he was quite surprised, that old poor man. So somehow he gave, and then he saw Sanatana Goswami very happily exchanged it and took the quilt and went away. Then went Sanatana Goswami with that old quilt. He came in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was satisfied. Yes, now you are fit and ready for taking further lessons. Then the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed 3 months, Sanatana Goswami, 2 months or 3 months in Banaras. So the point is that even little attachment for small things can actually keep us in this material existence, will become an impediment for getting out of this material existence. And without coming out of material existence, there is no possibility of pure devotional service. So, devotional service we may execute, but with some attachment still in the heart, even to very, very insignificant things, small things. It can be an impediment for making progress to the stage of coming to pure devotional service. That's why Srila Rupa Goswami says, Anya abhilashita shunyam. No other desire, absolutely no other desire other than one desire. Because as living being, we cannot be without desire. Some places Shastra says, become desireless. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, Nispruha sarva kamebhyo. Become free from all desires. But there, it is understood that one has to become free from all material desires. One has to become free from all material desires. So we understand that even as neophytes in Krishna consciousness, in the beginning itself we understand we have to become free from all material desires. So we think it's okay to cultivate spiritual desires. But Srila Rupa Goswami wants even spiritual desires, which may appear like spiritual desire, but actually it is a material desire. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has warned neophytes, don't try to imitate Haridas Thakur by going to a secluded place and trying to sit in a solitary place and chant 3 lakh names of Hare Krishna. Don't imitate. Why? Because in the neophyte stage, it is not possible to be sitting in a solitary place in a detached way, completely absorb one's mind in the holy name. Because a neophyte generally will not have taste, will not have a spiritual attraction for the holy name. So then what happens if somebody somehow develops this desire and tries to prematurely take up this practice of exclusively chanting Hare Krishna throughout the day? Then the desire for name and fame, desire for secretly enjoying the senses like a concession. Just like some people come to Vrindavan and then it becomes too austere, then they secretly go and smoke some bidi. Actually, they are very unfortunate people, because even though they have desire for spiritual advancement, practicing austerity, but they don't have proper guidance, or they are misled into thinking that somehow I should practice severe austerity. It somehow doesn't happen. There's no magic here that works. We have to follow the rules and regulations. We have to have proper guidance. We have to be under proper guidance. The expert guidance of a bona fide spiritual master is absolutely essential. So, even for somebody who's serious about spiritual life, Rupa Goswami wants Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, no other desire. Even so-called spiritual desires, we should give up. With only one desire. What is that? Simply to do everything to please Krishna exclusively and for no other desire, no other purpose. So that is not very easy. If you actually sincerely try, let me do all activities simply to please Krishna, then it's quite a challenge to control the mind and the senses which constantly demand gratification. The mind is always demanding subtle pleasures, and the senses are demanding gross pleasures. Always, in any situation, everywhere. So, that's why to cultivate this Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, one has to systematically begin by following the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti is also part of Sadhana Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti means practice. Practice means daily we have to do something. Daily we have to do. And even what has to be done is definitely specified. Not that somebody likes chanting, they will chant. Somebody likes reading Bhagavatam, they will read Bhagavatam. No. Rupa Goswami says in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that for a neophyte who is just beginning this devotional service, 64 items are recommended. The first item among the 64 items is to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Even those 64 items, many of those items you cannot independently practice. You can't have your own program, independent program, or convenient program suiting your convenience. No. You have to actually first of all come under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And then you have to approach such a spiritual master when he gives shelter, means he agrees to guide you. Then you have to surrender. That surrender and acceptance of the spiritual master for giving guidance is called initiation. Many times initiation is thought of as a formality. It's not just a formality. It's not a ritual. A ritual may be there. Some formalities may be there. But those are simply meant to help us understand the real spirit of initiation is surrender. Tad vidhi pranipadena pariprashnena sevai. These three have to be there. This is Diksha, real Diksha. Surrender has to be there. Surrender means no more independence. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Arjuna is telling Krishna. So far friendly talks were going on because Arjuna was situated as a friend of Krishna. So Arjuna realized, now this is not going to work, this friendly talk. So he surrendered to Krishna and he he surrendered as Shishya. Shishya means disciple. Disciple means discipline. Disciple means obedience. Complete, total obedience to the spiritual master's instructions. There is no bargaining there. I can follow this, I cannot follow this. I can do this, I cannot do something else. No. Total surrender. So, such total surrender, simply one cannot go to some spiritual master and surrender like that. It's not a small thing. One should be confident that I can repose my faith in such a spiritual master who will be my guide, and particularly if one is accepting the spiritual master as one's eternal guide. Chakshudan diloye janme janme prabhu se. Life after life, he is my guide, he is my master. So such a spiritual master is not anybody and everybody you can accept like that. So therefore, one has to search out for a bona fide spiritual master. Now, what has Srila Prabhupada done? Before Prabhupada established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you know, the initial devotees, they met Prabhupada, but they did not know who's Prabhupada. So by good fortune, some of them got attracted to Prabhupada, and then they started associating, inquiring. But after some time, they realized that they have to actually submit, surrender. Then they did that. Then what did Prabhupada do? He established one institution so that, just like there is a university. Now when university is established, a good university, a proper university, then anybody desirous of studying a particular subject, if that university says that yes, you can study this particular subject because they have a department for teaching that subject, they have a professor, they have teaching staff, whatever facilities required, everything is available in the university. Then one simply has to go and enroll oneself in that university. Then the authorities will direct, oh, you want to learn economics? Then become a student of the economics class. And then you have to learn from such and such a professor, who is the certified expert. So in the Vedic culture, where will one search for an expert? Obviously the institution called Parampara system. That's the institution, Parampara system. But Prabhupada formalized it by establishing this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And if somebody comes to this institution, one should not have to choose a spiritual master. Just like somebody is not enrolled in the university, then they have to search out for a proper teacher if they want to learn something. They look for a tutor, as they say. Correct? But if somebody is in a university, somebody cannot go and say, I want to choose my professor. It doesn't exist. Such a thing doesn't happen in the university. Primarily Primarily because, not because the university doesn't want to offer the choice, primarily because the student is not able to ascertain who's the expert. If I am in ignorance about what should be the real qualifications of a spiritual master, how can I go on assessing different transcendentalists? How can I do that? I'm not competent. So therefore this institutional system is there always. Always this institutional system is there. And Prabhupada established the institution. Somebody comes to ISKCON, then should they have to select a spiritual master? No, institution doesn't mean that. Institution means the spiritual master is available by the very system, by the very organization. So if somebody comes to ISKCON, like before 1997, before 1977, anybody comes to ISKCON, who's the spiritual master? Prabhupada. So while the institution continues, the same thing should continue. Even after Prabhupada passed away, the system Prabhupada established is that they come to ISKCON, they take shelter of Prabhupada. That's all. Very simple. There's no question of selecting, choosing. And you know the havoc it created when somebody tried to do that. So, this institution that Prabhupada established, as soon as one comes in contact with the institution, naturally, very organically, one will come in contact with Prabhupada. And immediately one will come to know, oh, here is a bona fide spiritual master. Very easily, very clearly, very nicely one can come to know. Then naturally one takes shelter of Prabhupada. Now that Prabhupada is not physically present is not an impediment as far as spiritual life is concerned. Materially, yes, if there is no professor physically present in a university, then there may be no possibility of a student properly learning. But in America I have seen, and I don't know whether even now it exists, if there is a university where a professor, an expert professor is there teaching a subject, and there are others in the neighborhood of that place who cannot every day travel very big distances, then the university offers, I'm talking 35 years back when I was in US. So I was in a small place, a small town, 120 miles away from the big city in Florida. So my friend, my colleague who was working with me, he had enrolled for a course in that university, in that big city, and to attend the classes, he would attend in one elementary school, one primary school in this small town, where the university had arrangement that there will be a television and a phone, a telephone. I'm talking of 35 years back. That time there was no internet, there was no such facility of internet connectivity. So a television and a telephone, and it will be set up by one staff member of the university who will drive 120 kilometers and come to the school And here there will be students who have enrolled to that university program, and the professor is giving the class in the evening because it is for working people, MS program. So evening 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock there will be lectures. So 6 o'clock in this elementary school, I happened to go one day with my friend to just see. So these students will come to this elementary school and the setup is there, television is there, the professor is giving the discourse in the university classroom. There is a camera, and that camera through some microwave connection or something, there's a receiver here, there's a broadcasting of the image, and the voice is through the telephone. So all these students, there were some 4 students or something in this small town who had enrolled for the course. So these 4 students will have one telephone, and there will be a common television. Right? So these students will actually put on the speaker phone, and whatever the professor is speaking, so they will keep hearing and seeing his picture on this television screen. And then at the end of the class, any questions, then they have to press one button on this telephone. So it will beep there in the professor's classroom. And then say, oh, somebody from a remote location has got a question. So then they will lift the phone and ask the question. Then the professor will repeat the question, and then he will give the answer. So my point is, even though the professor is not physically present, they are making so much arrangement for that professor's lecture to be heard, because the students can benefit from that professor's lecture. Similarly, this is of course a crude example, we don't have all those handicaps in spiritual life. Prabhupada is available, even though not physically present, for us to accept him as our bona fide spiritual master, eternal master, and get guidance and follow his instructions and actually perfect ourselves and go back to Godhead. So if karmis can think of all those arrangements, because it is the particular professor who's expert whom the students want to learn from because of his expertise. Similarly, Prabhupada is the pure devotee, the great Acharya, from whom we have to learn, from whom we have to take guidance, who can deliver everyone, whoever takes shelter. So Prabhupada is available. Of course, we have spiritual methods of taking association. The karmis have their way of getting the discourses or lectures or whatever. We have our way, spiritual way of taking association, of getting guidance. So my point is, institution means there is no question of selecting the teacher or the spiritual master. No question of selection. So if in an institution there is a system that somebody has to come to the institution and then select, then that is a flawed system. There is a flaw in it. So therefore, in this institution that Prabhupada has established, Prabhupada is the spiritual master, always. And if anyone wants to become a spiritual master, they may do so outside this institution, not within the institution. Not within this institution. They may have their own institution. So, spiritual life means accepting the shelter of the bona fide spiritual master as the first step in Vaidhi Bhakti. And then only anything else is possible. Then all the other instructions are also guided instructions. 64 principles, 63 other principles are there. But the first one is accept shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So without spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, can't even begin devotional service. Formally, properly, seriously. You can't expect proper guidance. You can't be sure you'll make progress. So, for giving that systematic guidance properly to guide everybody, Prabhupada has set up this institution. So, anybody comes to this institution, guaranteed. There should be a guarantee. Now I come, now I don't have to search, I don't have to verify, nothing. They come and they follow whatever the rules, regulations, norms, guidance of the authorities who are there to guide. So the formalities may be organized by so many other people. Just like the admission formalities in a university. Some administrative staff, whoever is there, will do all the administration formalities. But when it comes to learning, they will guide the student to the professor only. Not that the administrator will say, oh, I will also teach, come on, sit down. No, that doesn't happen. Similarly, the formalities of organizing this institution, so many other people may do. Initially, Prabhupada himself had taken the full responsibility for organizing everything. He was doing everything. But later on, he trained up his disciples to take up what? The organizing, the administration, to provide the facilities. All that he trained up. And in that sense, he said, you become Guru. Guru means one who can teach, one who can direct, one who can guide. But not the type of Guru who is the bona fide spiritual master to whom the disciple should surrender. That is not for somebody who organizes, somebody who takes a responsibility. No. That is exclusively, that position is for Prabhupada. To take surrender of a jiva is not a small thing. Actually, that is only for Krishna. But Krishna has made the arrangement that his pure devotee representative also accepts the surrender of the jivas on behalf of Krishna. So even Prabhupada is accepting on behalf of Krishna. He is a transparent medium through whom all our surrender goes to Krishna. The disciples' surrender goes to Krishna. He is able to do that because he is 100% pure devotee. If somebody else who is not 100% pure devotee accepts surrender and thinks that, oh, this surrender is not meant for me, meant for Krishna, unless one is transparent, how will one transfer to Krishna? That is the problem. So therefore, in such a position, only a 100% pure devotee can sit and accept the surrender of jivas to be actually passed on to Krishna. And Isha Upanishad says, Krishna is apapa viddham. No sin can touch Krishna. So if the disciple surrenders, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, all the scriptures say, that the disciple is freed from all sinful reactions. So what happens to those sinful reactions? They are completely nullified by Krishna. And how does it go to Krishna? Through the parampara. And the current link in the parampara is the one who takes and passes on. And because all the members of the parampara are pure devotees, all of them are transparent. It ultimately goes to Krishna. And Krishna is apapaviddham. He completely nullifies any quantity of sin. Doesn't matter. Unlimited volumes of sin. Just like Krishna is coming upon the holy name. So somebody chants the holy name can nullify all sinful reactions, 100%. Because the holy name is Krishna, that's why. Similarly, when the spiritual master, somebody surrenders, all the sinful reactions are nullified because spiritual master is a transparent medium to pass on everything to Krishna. So we should understand these things are all explained in Prabhupada's books very nicely. But somebody is not thoroughly, carefully, properly studied, properly understood, then they may make some shortcut to the process. Change something which Prabhupada has given, make some new system, and then it creates so much problem in the institution. Let's stop it. Uttara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.